Hello everybody. You may or may not know, but I was a Serena player when I first started playing Shadow Era, and that's why Serena has a special place in my heart for being one of my favorite heroes, and I was so happy that she got some support in the form of Gyre and Gimble. So today, this deck is all about how we're going to be using the new support that Serena got to run a much more aggressive Serena deck than you might be used to from some of the traditional builds. So here we're going to go ahead and we sacrifice Helm. That's a pretty good early sacrifice because of the fact that it's a 4-cost thing that only works while you have weapons in the grave. So that can take a while to set up. Here we're on turn 2, okay, and I do want to talk a little bit about my sacrifice. This is a much more aggressive deck than you're used to. So what that means is even something that's 4 cost or 5 cost, that's high cost in this kind of deck. We're mostly playing low cost weapons and low cost allies to control the game here. Now, our opponent has 2 Sandwings on board. Now, this is always dangerous because as soon as your opponent has multiple Sandwings, they can kind of skip their sack and get like a double benefit because both of them are going to trigger. So we definitely want to kill one of these. We have 2 options for that. We can Rabble Rouser or we can Gyre and Gimble. Now, the thing about Rabble Rouser and Silent Assassin is that when Silent Assassin attacks, it actually loses attack and also loses stealth. So we don't really want to do that yet because we want to keep it there until we can basically either use it when we really need it rather than using it now and then not having it later. So I want to kind of save the stealth here. That's why I'm instead going to play Gyre and Gimble. Now we're going to read Gyre and Gimble really fast. Gyre and Gimble is a new weapon that's basically designed for Serena. It says, when your hero deals combat damage to an opposing hero, a random opposing ally takes that much poison damage, and when you summon a weapon on top of it, you get to draw 2 cards. So this does 2 things for Serena. First of all, it lets you hit the face, but also still control the board. Now, I'll go over why that's really important later, but the second thing it does is it gives you draw power, which is really important, especially since formerly Serena would need to use something like ill-gotten gains, and there's a lot more artifact hate right now. It's just a really unreliable draw engine to be relying on ill-gotten gains, not to mention the tempo loss you get from playing a 4-cost item that only really gets you stuff if you're able to kill stuff and destroy items. So that's why this is basically, it's not really even a draw engine. But what it is it gives you enough of this kind of inconsistent draw or, kind of cantrip draw that you can kind of basically fuel your draw mostly off of this one card. Now, I said I would talk about its effect. Why is this effect so good? Well, first of all, Serena's ability gives a weapon 2 attack, and then your opponent discards a card if you attack their hero. But it doesn't actually force them to discard a card if you attack their ally. And so one of the main problems with Serena is you want to attack their hero, but you need to kill their ally, because if you don't kill their ally, then they're going to win the game because they have all their allies out and you did nothing about it. So Gyre and Gimble solves that issue because you can attack face and also kill an ally at the same time. So it solves what I see as the main issue with Serena, which is you were forced to choose between hitting face to force your opponent to discard cards and also killing allies so you don't just lose the game. And this lets you do both at once. Now the downside is that it's random, so you don't get as much of a choice of who you kill, and that actually is a pretty big downside in a lot of situations. In this situation, though, it doesn't matter which one it kills. It's going to kill either the Dustcrawler or the Whelp. And so I'm pretty happy to just go ahead and hit face there. We kill the Whelp and discard a card from their hand, and we get our hit list. That's an amazing turn for us, and that's just why Gyre and Gimble is so powerful. We took out their hand, we killed one of their allies, and we just set up for next time. Here, our opponent goes ahead and does the Here Be Monsters. That is quite annoying. But now we can use our Silent Assassin to kill that Dustcrawler. And I just go Rabble Rouser here. I just want to get some more allies on the board. I am fully expecting my opponent to play a weapon here, so this way I can at least have something on board for when that happens. So, very expected here. You always have to expect that weapon coming out. It's too bad we didn't get to discard that from our opponent's hand. And yeah, we just sacrifice, I think we sacrificed a Viska there. That's a pretty simple sacrifice. Now, here, I also have another choice. I can either stop Thief this Grundler's Double, or I can Slithering Viper to take out the Dustcrawler. I think I could have gone either way, but I just go for the Stop Thief here, and then that lets me also play the hit list there. I almost crashed into the Dustcrawler, but I figured I would rather save the health and have my opponent use the Dustcrawler to kill the Silent Assassin, especially because I can Slithering Viper next turn and disable that one. I'm keeping my retreats because retreats are generally really good against dragons. That's part of the reason why I even run it. And the other thing is, you may be wondering why I'm not running Covert Operative. I like Retreat more than Covert Operative in this deck because it doesn't interfere with your Gyre and Gimble. That's going to hit a random ally, and normally when you're running Covert Operative, you don't want to kill the Covert Operative. So that's why I'm not running it. Anyway, our opponent plays the Hunter's Gambit, and we've got the Dustcrawler there. So here's another combo, or I'm not even sure if I'll do it this turn. So I'm going to use the... I'm just going to discard a card from my opponent's hand. Now, the reasoning here is that my opponent only has 2 cards in hand. So if I can discard something that they were planning to use, that can be really, really powerful. And because of its Gyre and Gimble, I can hit the Dustcrawler. So we're going to do that. Discard the Goliath, the Broodmother. Okay, here's the combo I was talking about. I had Gyre and Gimble out, then I played Boooomerang on top of it. That gives, that lets me draw 2 because Gyre and Gimble was destroyed due to summoning another weapon. And then Boooomerang has 4 attacks still because Serena gives your weapons +2 attack. So this combo, the Gyre and Gimble plus Boooomerang combo, is actually very, very strong, and I like it quite a bit there. Now, we do have to keep in mind that our opponent gave allies Defender due to this location here, but because Boooomerang has Ambush, that was fine. Hit list gave us some more draw, and so now I'm feeling very comfortable in terms of draw here. This deck does draw a lot. There's so many cantrips like Rabble Rouser, Gyre and Gimble, Hit List, so many cards that just draw you more cards that I'm not running a proper draw engine like Ill-Gotten Gains, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video. Our opponent's going to grab another weapon out, but here's what I find when I'm running against Dragon Baduru. And this is a very popular deck, so everyone is talking about it and how hard it is to counter. What I find is if you can beat off the starting rush, it's really not too bad. Like, here my opponent just doesn't have enough draw to sustain them, especially when I'm discarding cards from their hand. There's just not enough draw power here for my opponent to really do much. And so now that I've beaten off that early rush, there's not much my opponent can do to get back into the game. And so we'll keep watching this maybe for a little bit longer, but this game is now basically going to be going to come down to the fact that my opponent, doesn't have enough card advantage to really power through, whereas I'm drawing cards all the time and summoning these allies out. So for that reason, I actually, I think this deck has a pretty good matchup against like a very aggressive deck. And the reason is that you have the tools to counter allies, and because of that, you can counter an early rush, and then after that, you can totally out-advantage your opponent, because while you are on an early, because basically of the fact that, you get so much card advantage that you can out-advantage your opponent pretty easily here. So here I just go face, and this is just going to set up an impossible situation. My opponent has to clear all my allies and somehow clear my weapons and armors to even have a hope of living, and they aren't able to take out everything. So now we can just win with the Night Owl there, or even with the Viska. We had plenty of options there. So yeah, this is a deck that can comfortably counter a rush because of the ally control you have, and out-advantage your opponent in the long run. And so that was one video. Let's see if I have another one I might want to show. So my one loss so far was against this mage deck. Serena usually does struggle against mages, so that is not necessarily a surprise there, but I guess Also, I kind of got to a slow start in that game. Let's see. There are other games I might want to show, but actually, so because of how popular Baduru Dragons are, most of my games in my queue are against Baduru Dragons, and we've already seen that. So I'm actually just going to cut the video a little bit short today. I did want to cover a short thing about my game. So I designed this game called Chroma Mix, and you can get 1,000 shadow crystals if you back the game. It's $17, and when you see this notification, you can just click it. It will take you here. You just add this to your pledge, and then you just submit your pledge. You fill out your information, and I already have one here, so it says 2 quantity. Let's reduce that maybe. So it's only $17, not $34. And then free shipping to the U.S. And then there's a shipping guide for what is other territories and areas and regions. But anyway, that's Chroma Mix. It's got like 2 days left, so if you are interested, please check it out. You don't have that much time to go ahead and check it out, and I do really appreciate all the support there. And again, to get that 1,000 shadow crystals, you just have to tell me somehow what your backer number is, and then I will get you your 1,000 shadow crystals. So yeah, thanks so much for the support, and that's Chroma Mix. Anyway, now I do want to go over the deck list. So I have modified this deck a little bit, but essentially I'm going with 4 Silent Assassins, and I think this is a necessary card right now. Silent Assassin is so good against dragons because dragons, you know, they summon the whelp, they summon, you know, whatever, and then, you know, they're going to kill your turn 2 ally, but Silent Assassin has stealth, and it has 3 attacks, so that puts it in range to kill even a whelp on turn 2 that gets buffed on turn 3. You can kill with Rabble Rouser plus Silent Assassin. So these 2 cards together basically can take out the whelp. I think Silent Assassin is necessary for this deck, especially if you don't want to be losing to those early rushes. I'm only running 1 Night Owl because we do spam quite a few allies between the Silent Assassins and the Rabble Rousers. That Night Owl often loses its stealth, and the theme of the allies I'm going for here is stealth allies. So that's also why I'm running 4th Slithering Viper. I'm running a bunch of allies that have stealth. Because of the low ally count, we have to rely on something like stealth to protect our allies, to make sure that not all of our allies are just going to die as soon as they hit the field. That protection means that even if we're running fewer allies, we can still reliably keep them on the board. And so I want my allies to normally either have stealth or basically part of that is if our allies are living, even if they are weak stats, we can buff it with Rabble Rouser. And so the stealth plus Rabble Rouser combination here works really, really, really well. Anyway, that basically covers the ally control for Silent Assassins, 1 Night Owl, for Rabble Rouser, and for Slithering Vipers. I put in 2 Viska. I think Viska is just a good card. It's good against weapon heroes, and so I was looking for ways to kind of improve some of the matchups that I think are a little iffy. Weapon heroes maybe being one of them. Anything that's not like super heavy into allies and can go solo. So Viska might help against something like a Dark Claw or you know, like a Threbin or something. Sorcerous Poison is a one of. Now, I see this card as more of a tech card. You can sometimes encounter some solo heroes and some heroes that are just all about ally control. And Sorcerous Poison just ensures you just have a little bit more damage output. This deck does struggle a little bit, not that much, but a little bit with damage output, especially because you don't run too many allies, and the allies you do run don't have like that much attack. So the way you win the game is usually through hitting your opponent repeatedly with your weapons, and if your opponent has some kind of healing or something, then you might want something like Sorcerous Poison to just help with those super long grindy matchups. So in those grind games, I do like this card. Otherwise, I just sacrifice it. Like if I'm against dragons, if I'm against Baduru, I'm just sacrificing this card. Retreat is a really a meta call right now. You could replace this with something else later on as the meta shifts. But right now, what I'm seeing a lot of is allies that get buffed. such as dragons, and so retreat really works to counter that kind of deck because you can just bounce it back to their hand, and then now they're low on resources if they were a dragon deck, and they also lost all the buffs on that ally. So retreat is very, very good, and I already mentioned why I didn't run it a covert op over this, but I also like retreat because you can reset your own allies too. Anyway, Stop Thief is a 4 of. I think you need 4 because armors can really hurt this deck. The reason armors really hurt this deck is because armors reduce the damage that Gyre does, and so it's also going to reduce the amount of damage you can deal to allies. So you need a way to kill armors, and Stop Thief is that way. If your opponent has an armor, you just Stop Thief it. It basically stops one of the main counters to this deck, which is armors. And it's a very good counter because Stop Thief also gives you a resource. So it's a very good card, and there's no reason not to run 4 of it. So I just do. Now, if you're against a hero like a mage or something, obviously, you're just sacrificing these. Anyway, Hit List is another 4 of. This is another way to just draw cards. It's draw 2, essentially, and having an ally die on a turn is not too bad. But it can brick a little bit, so if I draw into multiple copies, I'm often sacrificing 1 or 2. I highly recommend that, because you never want to run into a situation where you've got multiple hit lists and no way to kill an opposing ally. So sometimes it's worth sacrificing multiples if you draw into multiples, because even just triggering this once is usually enough to get your draw going, and then your main draw is going to come from Gyre and Gimble, which we already went over. I'm running 4 Boooomerang. Now, Boooomerang is an interesting choice, but what I really like about it is that it costs 2, and that combo where you can attack without actually attacking, that 0 shadow energy cost to attack an opposing ally with the highest cost, that comes in clutch a lot of times, especially after you play it over Gyre and Gimble. So I really like Boooomerang. I'm running 1 Weevil-tipped Crossbow. Now, the main reason is for Helm of Saymeht. Sometimes you want the Weevil, so just having that option is nice if you can get into the graveyard. And sometimes you just don't draw into your, Gyres as much as you would like, so that's why this is kind of like a 5th Gyre, although you really want to be drawing into your Gyres. This is the star of the deck. It's the main thing that makes this deck run, and that's why we're running 40 cards. We want to guarantee we're seeing Gyre as often as possible. We have a lot of draw, and so we really want to see this card. Not seeing Gyre can make this deck kinda not do so well. I think without this card, you're not in a very great position. Finally, to round out the deck list, we're running Helm of Saymeht. This lets you return a weapon of cost 4 or less from your graveyard into play. That works so well with Gyre because then you can bring a Gyre back, replace it with a weapon from your hand, draw 2, and just be ready to go once again. So I really like Helm of Saymeht in this game, in this deck, especially since the star of this deck is Gyre and Gimble, and this is, you could think of this as like a 4-cost Gyre and Gimble. Like that can also, if your opponent is not attacking you and not reducing the durability on this, then sometimes it can be like multiple Gyres and 1. But, yeah, really the main purpose is to just have more Gyres, especially since your Gyres, it's only 2 durability. You're going to get into the grave if you play it, and it's going to disappear pretty frequently. So I've probably blabbered on for long enough. That is just a really quick overview of that deck. Again, I've been doing really well in ranked with it, so if you enjoy Serena, give this one a shot. I'll put the deck list in the video description, and you can check it out there. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.